Welcome to the next episode of the BetterWallet podcast. Today we're going to have Vince Holleran on the line, who is a money coach, and he used to be a licensed financial professional who used to work at Morgan Stanley. He has a community of over 500,000 folks who are all focused on learning how to invest the right way. Very similar to my mission, and that's the reason why I wanted to bring him in. Also very similar to me, he comes from a very small town, came from poverty, and now he's on the mission to make sure everyone is doing the right things with their money. I wanted to bring him on to have a conversation about how to navigate the current market. There's a lot that's happening. The market has been fairly turbulent, as well as the Capitol when it comes to what's happening in the White House. They're talking about the debt ceiling. We're going to talk a little bit about the concerns that relate to that. And we're going to tell you exactly what you need to be doing with your money, given all this uncertainty. So you're going to learn about that. You're going to learn about what to actually focus on. There's a lot that's happening and a lot of things you could focus on. We're going to talk specifically what you should be focusing on during this time. And then number three, we're going to talk about Vince's path from going from poverty to being a financial coach and how he's helping other people invest for their family and invest for themselves in the current state. So you're going to really want to tune in on this one, especially if you're concerned about what's happening out there in the market. So with that, let's tune in.
Welcome to the BetterWallet podcast, a podcast where we talk to everyday people who have changed their lives through managing their money. We talk about their money journeys, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Welcome everyone to the BetterWallet podcast. As you guys know, the BetterWallet podcast is all about demystifying the topic of money and sharing powerful money stories from people who truly beat the odds. Today, we got my guy, Vince Holleran, on the line. I'm going to call him VI because I feel like that's a good abbreviation to use. And one of my good friends back at home, his name is Vince, and he goes by VI, so I'm going to call him VI as well. Because he's one of those type of guys where online, and you guys probably have thought about this before, but he's the type of person that you see online, you're just like, this guy speaks the same language I do. I need to connect with him. And you drag your feet and kick the can down the road forever. And I got to the point where I was like, this dude knows what he's talking about. I need to have him on the podcast, and I need to befriend him. And then also need to bring him in and talk business and all that stuff. So VI, I'm happy that I have you on the podcast now, and looking forward to connecting with you in the future.
I appreciate you, man. Like I said, it's an honor, and VI is my first ever nickname.
Oh, dope. Perfect.
Yeah, so look, I appreciate that. Everybody usually just call me Vince, but VI is different, so that's something new. I thank you.
That it was one of the type of things where people who listen to the episodes, they know that I'm notorious for screwing up names. And in my head, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to start calling him VI off the cuff, because I know if I try to say Vince, I'm going to screw up and say VI. So
right, it's easy to remember.
Right. So if you guys don't know who Vince Holleran is, so he's a money coach. He makes money extremely easy online. I love seeing his reels where he breaks down exactly what you need to do for the average person. He has a community of 500,000 online that are all focused on getting their finances together. And as I mentioned, he's a wealth of knowledge as it comes to just money management, investing, and all things money. So I look forward to diving deep into everything that and helping people navigate this turbulent market that we're seeing today.
Sure.
But before we jump in, my audience knows that I always give an icebreaker question up front. And the icebreaker question, and I don't prepare the guests for it, so I apologize. But the icebreaker question today is, if you could have any money mentor, anyone, who would it be? And you can't say Warren Buffett. Everyone says Warren Buffett.
Nah, I forgot his name. Who's the billionaire guy that's black? I forgot his name.
Robert Smith?
I think that's his name.
Yeah, he has a middle name. Robert F. Smith?
I think it's Robert F. Smith. I'm just really interested in his story, his upbringing, and, what he could teach, and, what information, he could help me with, or just knowledge and wisdom that he can share. Because, it's amazing. That's an amazing feat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Coming from, and I know how from our culture, how it is, to being able to get to that level. So that's definitely somebody I would love to have in my corner, to just be able to like, okay, ask questions and talk to and just relate to and stuff like that too. So
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, man. Like when I was in the personal finance world, like working at Vanguard, you don't see a lot of people that look like us in that space. Not only like are your peers, you know, a lot of different cultures that are not our culture, but the managing directors, the people who run the company, they don't look anything like us.
yeah,
Frankly, a lot of them are just, you know, white males. And to see someone like Robert F. Smith go off and become a millionaire, then become a billionaire through running his hedge fund. I mean, it's just great. It's great to see, and it shows you as like a young black male that anything is possible, right? Like as you mentioned, comes from like nothing, right?
yeah,
And the cool thing about him is that I feel like nowadays it's starting to get out and talk to more and more people. As you can imagine, as a hedge fund manager, you're fairly busy, but
yeah,
you're starting to see him make more appearances. And I think that's great for not only us, but also like the younger kids that are starting to come up and that they know that they can make it. Like it reminds me of, you know, when Barack became president, like no matter like
yeah,
your political affiliation, like there's things I don't believe in any politician. Like I'm not a fan of any politician at all. But the fact that he can become president for me, like back in 2008, 2009, and like my most influential years, like to see that it makes you think, okay, well, anything is possible. So
exactly.
Robert F. Smith was definitely that person for me coming up in the financial world. So cool. That's a good way to start off, man. But
Yep.
I want to learn more about your journey. Where do you come from? Tell me about your childhood.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Georgia. Yeah, I'm in Delaware.
Atlanta?
Nah, not Atlanta. So I'm a country boy in a
Me too.
little small town called Camden County, Georgia. People may be familiar with St. Mary's, Georgia. It's right there on the border of Georgia and Florida. So usually if we want to go shopping or something, we go to Jacksonville, which is like 30 minutes away. But yeah, I grew up very small town with two younger brothers. So I'm the oldest of two, single parent household. Y'all know the whole spiel, the whole story. Most cases for young men in my culture, right? So yeah, that's how I grew up. I mostly stayed with my grandparents. So I have an old soul, you know,
Yeah.
hanging around with my granddaddy all the time. He used to take us take me fishing. I used to be the only one that was willing to get up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to go fishing all day and don't get back till like 6. So, but yeah, man, we very humble family, come from humble beginnings, you know.
Awesome, man. Like
Yeah, that,
as you're saying that, like literally everything you just said, I relate to. You know, I had my mom and my dad, but like I came from a very small town. It's rare that I connect with anyone that is from like a small town where bonfires and fishing and
yeah,
hunting is like normal. And yeah, man, like once you go from that to like moving to a big city, it's like a big adjustment for a lot of us. So that's awesome to hear, bro. Like, so you grew up in a small town, you got to the point where I assume at a certain point you say, hey, like I want to go off to school after high school. Walk us through that journey.
yeah, man. So my sport was football. Yeah, so I played football from the age of 7 all the way to, when did I stop? Like 23,
All
22?
right, let me guess. Let me guess. So were you a running back?
No.
Linebacker?
No, you're getting closer though. It's on defense.
Defensive end?
Yeah, yeah, that was
Ah,
me.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I was like a Von Miller type
I
edge
can see
rusher.
that. I can see
Yeah,
that.
so when people see me, they like, oh, you're taller than I, expected. I'm
I get it
like,
all the time.
yeah, it's like people think I'm short, but I guess because they see me on the video all the time. But yeah, I played defensive end, and it was one of those things. I think that was one of the first turning points in my life, going through that whole experience of getting recruited and being smaller than everybody else. You look today, dudes is like 6'4", 6'5" in high school.
Monsters.
It's crazy. 240, 250 in high school. Wow. And I was nowhere near that. I was like 226, 2 coming out. And it was a little struggle for me to get recruited. And I didn't start getting recruited till the summer going into my senior year, which was different from all the other people around me, the bigger guys that was already getting recruited. So, one of the things, and why I say it was such a big turning point for me, is because with no scholarships, none of that, my family was going through a hard time at the time. And my stepdad, who was like my only dad pretty much growing up, had passed away tragically in a motorcycle accident.
Wow.
So yeah, my mom and him had just got married. It was very crazy. So, I had to grow up quick. I had to take care of the family. I had to make sure everybody was good. I had to be strong. I had to be the strong big brother going through all of that. And then my mom hit me one day and like, hey, you want to go to college? Let me know all that stuff, how much it's going to cost and everything. And I sat down and I told her, I'm like, look, you're not going to have to worry about college. I'm going to get this full ride scholarship some way, somehow, whether it's academics or just, sports. I'm going to make sure that I get to college. So that's one less thing that you have to worry about. And I remember telling her that with no scholarships, no nothing, no connections with coaches. And, just from that day, I just started grinding and working and putting in the work. And I hit a growth spurt. The coaches gave me a shot. I took full advantage of it. And then I starting in 11th grade, and I started for those next 2 years. And ultimately from there, I started getting looks and everything, and eventually got recruited by a whole bunch of colleges, full ride scholarship. So, wow. It's crazy how all of that happened. Or I can't say it's crazy. It's just, hard work and determination that I put into it. But, that's why it's one of those
it just shows
points.
Your grit, man. It shows like your tenacity and your grit. Like, to go and say, okay, well, I'm going to make it happen, though I don't have the measurements that they're looking for, have the money, but like, I'm going to get that full ride. Like, once you get done with that, like once you complete that task, you feel like anything is possible.
Exactly.
I relate because, I had a similar conversation with my mom and my dad, and they're like, we don't have the money to send you to college. And for me, I knew that if I did not go to college, I was not going to be in a good situation because a lot of people around me, they were entrepreneurs, but they weren't paying taxes, if you know what I mean. Like, it was the only way out. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, like, would you do it all over again if you knew how much it was going to cost for college? And I was like, yeah, like, because I wouldn't be alive. Like, I'd be in jail or like dead, like some of the homies, I grew up with. So
exactly. I'm glad I got away. I'm glad I got away. It's so much that you learn about yourself, when you leave a nest. I eventually went to the University of Delaware, so that was 700, 800 miles from Georgia.
The Blue Hens?
Yeah. That's where I played at, man. It's a blessing, man. I'm truly grateful and glad that God guided me to make that decision because, I had some other options too, like Georgia Southern. That would have been like going to high school all over again. But I needed a culture shock. I needed something different. I need to go out and just do my own thing and get away. So I'm glad I did.
Yeah, and you made your way all the way from Georgia to Delaware.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm sure that was a culture shock to kind of go all the way up to Delaware, which I know about Delaware because I went to Penn State, and like Delaware is definitely a party school. It was great academically. And then you happen to be right near, from my understanding, you're like right near the beach as well. And so it's an interesting place to, go to college, but, a great one to learn everything you're learning. And, the fact that you had to go from Georgia all the way to Delaware is like, I mean, I couldn't imagine. Being a small-town kid, like I only went an hour north to Penn State. And even that was a culture shock for me, being around 60,000 people. I'm used to being around a couple hundred, if that.
Right.
So that's awesome, man. So like you're playing football at the University of Delaware, Blue Hens for anyone who is from Delaware. And so when did you get to the point where you're like, hey, like I want to learn more about finance? Was it after graduation or during the time that you're in college?
It was in college. So I feel like I always was good with money, or really I should say numbers. I'm a math guy. So, when I first got to college, I wanted to be an engineer. That and football didn't mix at all. So, I had to switch up my major to finance and business. So I graduated with a degree in business and economics. And, that's from during college when I started learning a little bit about it. They didn't really teach me the nuances. They didn't teach me the stuff I know now. But, that's when I really, switched gears. I'm like, okay, let me think about after football, starting a business or, learning more about money. Get into the financial industry. That was really my main goal.
Yeah, definitely. So like then you graduated, and another way we relate, like everything you were saying, I'm like, God, this guy is literally like my like a little brother. So I graduated with business economics. I came in to Penn State, wanted to do engineering.
Okay.
It has like an amazing engineering program.
Yep.
I didn't have an excuse like you do. Like you have a reason on why you didn't want to do engineering. I was just lazy, to be honest. Like I was like, yo, like these classes, like this chemical, what was it? The first engineering course. I forget the name of it. But it was like chemical engineering, like 101. And I like started taking the classes. I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, man, I was too distracted, coming from a small town, like I wanted to hang out
Right.
with the girls and like drink, have a good time. It was back way before BetterWallet. But the fact that you recognize that, hey, like I can't juggle two. I can't juggle, playing football and engineering. I mean, my hat goes off to you. And then you went into something that is also not easy, being finance and economics, where you're talking about theory. And even when it comes to finance, like you're not really learning everything you need to know about finance when you're in school.
Right.
A lot of it's like, markets and theory and all that stuff. But it's not until you actually get into the real world where you realize how to manage your own money. Talk to us a little bit about like your own personal finances, like right after you got done with school.
Yeah, so it was different, big time. So, you go from college and like pretty much everything is paid for to now you out here in the real world. Your mom is 800 miles away. You can't really call her for money because, she's trying to pay her bills and stuff like that. So it's really nobody you can lean on but yourself. So I learned really quickly, okay, it's bills that need to be paid. It's money that needs to be made. Something needs to happen, right? So, I was pursuing my NFL career. I had a shot with the Eagles, that actually went well. But, for some reason, I just didn't get that call back or invite to a mini camp. And so immediately I was just like, yo, let's just get into the workforce. Let me just start making money so that, I can start providing for myself and really start doing what I wanted to do in the league. But, start my career so that I can start doing that for my family. So I realized that it's crazy how I just think about this stuff, but I realized that the same thing, I wanted to make millions. I wanted to make all this money being a football player, that I could do the same thing in business. I could do the same thing in a career. I could do the same thing on my own. It'll just be a different platform. So that's when everybody was still pursuing their NFL careers and taking deals overseas and stuff like that. And I was just like, you know what, let me just stay here. Let me start working. Let me learn more about the financial industry. And so I got into, my first job was at Morgan Stanley.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working.
Delaware, right?
Yeah, it was in Delaware. Yeah, so I was working with basically alongside financial advisors. And that's when everything just lit up for me. So I was seeing the $4 million, $5 million, $10 million, $15 million accounts. Yeah. And I'm like, yo, it's really people with this kind of money. It's really people with this money.
Passively too. Yeah. Like they put in the work in the background, but they're able to make thousands of dollars passively. That, like, for me, that's what blew my mind.
Right. And I'm seeing it. I'm like, wow, like this is crazy.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you said, okay, well, I got to the point where I felt like I needed to pivot and I wanted to go into the workforce. And the cool thing is, like, you recognized early on that, hey, like, this is a means to an end. Like, the NFL could be great, but like I can go off and I can become a business owner. I can make money, even being, someone who works like a 9-to-5. And I think a lot of times, just because I've talked to so many like athletes, a lot of times people hold on to that dream forever. I mean, I'm all about dreaming, like, don't get me wrong, but it's like, think about what you're going to be doing after the professional world, because it doesn't last forever. Even like LeBron, Tom Brady, like they are the best athletes in the world. And even at a certain point, like they stop around 40, 45, and then you have a whole life left. Exactly. But you recognized early on that, hey, like I could do this football thing. I'm multi-talented. I could do this football thing. I could be a business owner. I'm working 9-to-5. So like, kudos to you for making the jump and knowing that you could have gone overseas, but you decided to do something different. So you go to Morgan Stanley. You're working alongside financial advisors. And when did you get to the point where you say, okay, well, I want to start helping other people with their money outside of my 9-to-5?
Yeah, so after seeing those numbers, I'm like, what can I do to start making this kind of money? What can I do to get to this point? So that's when I started studying for my licenses. So I got my investment licenses, Series 6, 63, and I was on path to get to the 7, or the advisory one where you can manage like,
65.
Yeah, 65, yeah. Yeah, I was on track to do that too. I got life insurance license and all that. So that's really when I got into the business of, okay, starting to help people and teach people what I learned from working at Morgan Stanley and from getting my licenses and learning about the markets and insurance and investing and budgeting and money management and stuff like that. And I was doing that for about 2 years. So what's crazy is I don't think too many people know this, but I actually quit my job to do that full time with no savings, no nothing at all. So I was trying to build that. I was trying to recruit people. I was trying to do a whole bunch of stuff all at one time, and it didn't work, right? It failed. So, I was struggling. I was in debt, had a whole bunch of credit card debt. So I ended up being in a bad position, trying to teach people how to get in good position.
Yeah.
Right. And at that point, that's when I realized, okay, it's time for me to make another pivot. It's time for me to change, do something else, because I'm struggling, and me struggling, trying to teach people how to get out the struggle, it don't even sit right with me. And I can't even really impact them the way that I want to, because I'm also in the hole, and people can sense that too. Right. So at that point I had to make a change, and I started hopping online. And then again, this is, I guess, foresight, just God just guiding me. Right. I'm just like, look, online things is going to blow up. Like, this is going to be something big in the future. This is around 2017, 2018. So I'm like, yeah, let me start just teaching online. Let me start sharing some stuff online. In the meantime, I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to get a job and get my finances in order, get out of debt, get myself straight, and put myself in position to really start winning financially. And so that's what I did, right? I really put my head down and I just grinded. I got back in grind mode and put myself in position. Meanwhile, just steady putting stuff out on Instagram, YouTube. Those were the only two platforms I was using at the time, and slowly growing my platform that way.
Yeah, no, I love that, man, because it's oftentimes we're in this generation where people think success and paying off debt, and like even when it comes to like building like a six-figure or multi-six-figure portfolio, they believe it comes easy. Everyone that I know who's successful, they had to grind in order to get there. And it's not 1 week, a lot of times it's not 1 month. It's multi-year process of doing the things that they know they need to do, even though they don't want to do it. And there's gonna be times where you want to give up. There's going to be times where you might think it's too challenging. There's going to be times where you're going to want to pivot. But the fact that you continue to be resilient and you wanted to get your finances in order, you paid off your credit card debt and all that, and then you got to the point where you start building your business brick by brick, now you're at a point where you can enjoy the fruit of your labor. I heard a great quote the other day. It was saying that like people don't actually want to race. They want to meet people at the finish line and party with them. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
Not at
for
all.
anyone who's listening to this and you're like, hey, like I want to reach success. I want to go and I want to get my finances in order. It's not going to be a tomorrow thing. It's not going to be a next week thing. It's not going to be a next month thing. It's going to take some time. But then you lean on people like me and EI who have been through it. We've been through the gutter, and we also didn't get any money from family members where we can say, okay, well, we reached this pinnacle, and it's like, nah, like you got help. Like we literally had to grind through in order to make it happen. So take that, guys, as a lesson, man. So 2018, 2019, you're building the platform, and then, COVID in 2020, I know was extremely challenging for the entire world, but for entrepreneurs that ran their business online, I can only believe that you did really well during that time from a business standpoint and also a financial standpoint.
Yes, that year changed a lot of people's lives in two ways, right? The negative way, right? COVID, the sicknesses, all that stuff. And then, business-wise for entrepreneurs and people that was savvy enough to be online. So, I always say like, the reason or where I am today all stemmed from that foundation and how I was building everything in those years prior. 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, really just building my foundation and saving money and learning more about personal finances and helping people here or there when I can and all that stuff. And then putting it online and just being consistent and dropping content, even when I'm getting 1 or 2 likes.
Yep.
Okay. That all was like reps, right? Coming from just like a sports background, that was all reps. That was all me practicing. That was until the point where opportunity met that preparation. And that was 2020 when everybody was panicking, everything was going down. I kept putting out videos, and lo and behold, more people are at home watching videos. And then next thing you know, I have a video that blow up and go crazy. And in situations where most people, when they go viral or they find themselves in these situations, you know, they don't know what to do. I was in position to really capitalize and take advantage of it from the first viral video, which was, you know, just a blessing in itself. But that's literally what happened, right? It wasn't like I wasn't putting in the work or I just put out one video out of nowhere. You know, it's just all that stuff just added up and compounded until, you know, 2020. Now it's going crazy.
That's awesome, man. You're totally right. You have to put yourself from a business standpoint and even like a financial standpoint, you have to put yourself in position where when the opportunity does come up, you can take full advantage of it. And there's been countless amount of times in my life where I shouldn't have been where I was at, but because I was prepared to be there, I ended up getting what I was hoping for. Even Vanguard, like there was no reason for me to be at Vanguard. None. Like all my peers were all trust fund kids. I came from the hood. Like I didn't even speak the same language. I remember one time this one lady was like, oh, like, and unfortunately it happened during one of the hurricanes up north, but she lost her home. And she was like, oh, I lost my home. Like, you know, da, da, da. And I'm like, oh, what's her name? Jenny. I was like, oh, Jenny, like, feel so bad. Like, where are you going to go back home to? She's like, oh, it was my third home. And I was like, what? Like, I'd never even heard of anyone having like a third home. That's kind of money that we're like, that I was like surrounded around. But the fact that when I went into the interview for Vanguard, I was prepared. I knew everything. I knew more about Vanguard than people that actually worked there. That's how prepped I was. And I was like ready to go. I had the suit on. I had everything ready because I knew that I think Eminem said like you only have one time, one chance. Like I knew that was my one chance. And if I screwed it up, then I wasn't going to be able to change my life in the way that I wanted to. So you're totally right, man. Like, and you prepared, 2020 hit, business did well, and you're still, like, pun intended, you're still gaining the dividends from what happened, you know, in 2020. But that all came from the grind that you had to put in 3 years later, guys. So for anyone who's on the line that's like, yo, I put in the grind for like 1 month, VI put a grind in for multiple years, and he's still grinding. We're talking about before the recording, still grinding and moving in the right direction to help people with their finances. So let's kind of transition real quick. I know before the call we're talking about the market, and you know the market's kind of choppy, and you know, there's a lot of things that are happening out there, like the debt ceiling, which we have to get these politicians together and figure it out. Again, the reason why I don't trust politicians, I feel like they get overpaid for something that they don't actually do, and that's keeping the country in order. That's another topic. And then you have companies that are, especially tech companies, that are going through these layoffs. People are losing jobs. You know, like how are you coaching your students on this, you know, turbulent market? You know, what are you telling them to ease their concerns?
Yeah, so I'm telling pretty much everybody that I work with that this is one of the best times that you want to get involved with and start learning about investing specifically, because you probably seen it, but this is when like you can literally go from having a couple $100,000 for retirement to having millions, a couple $1 million of retirement if you invest the right way. Like right now, even though the market is down and everybody's seeing all this red and all this stuff, right? Those are opportunities. Like this is the time when you should be really, you know, if you don't understand the market right now, understand the basics and at least begin investing something until you know, really understand it so that you can start doing more to really build wealth for the long run. So I'm telling everybody, this is the best time. This is the time to get your financial house in order. Like if any time, this is the best time. Really start saving, stack up your money. We have like save and invest challenges that we're doing inside the community, but like really get your finances in order now so that you can be prepared in case, you know, a recession does happen, right? They've been talking about a recession for 2 years now, but, you know, if it does, you're in position, you're prepared to come out of that winning versus having to start all the way over like most people have to do during those times with layoffs and things like that. So
You're right.
that's what I'm telling everybody. Position yourself. Start understanding your money. Get really close with your money and knowing where is it going, how much you're spending, how much you can save, how much you can invest, so that if things hit the bag, you already prepared.
Totally agree, man. And one thing that a lot of people don't know about what's happening today is that it's a normal part of the market cycle. You
Yes.
being in economics and finance, you get this. This has happened in 2001, 2008, even 2020. Like 2020 is weird because like COVID, and it wasn't
Right.
like anything was necessarily wrong with the economy, but you see ebbs and flows just like this. But right now, today, is like when most millionaires are created. Like they
Exactly.
start putting in the work. If you want to be rich, you have to study the rich. And what the rich are doing right now is that they're buying businesses, they're buying into ETFs and mutual funds, and they are doubling down. The people who don't know as much about money, they're jumping out. They're jumping out because of fear, and they're not sure like what's going to happen. But we know on average, the market is going to continue to climb, right? 10% every year on average over the long run. We know this.
Yes.
But with people jumping out, they're losing their chance at getting the piece of the pie. And I can't agree with you more, where I tell even my students, I'm like, this is the time, put the money in, because I wish I can go back to 2020 and put more money in. I wish I could go back to 2008 put more money in. I wish I was old enough to invest in 2001 and put more money in, because those are times where people are fearful, and I could have put that money in, I could have capitalized, but it's one of those type of things where hindsight is 2020. Exactly. Someone listening to this podcast right now might say, okay, well, I don't agree with that. And then 10 years from now, you're going to be like, I should have listened, right? And if you guys are going to listen to anyone, like there's a lot of people on the internet. Let me just put this out here. There's a lot of people on the internet that like learn what they've learned from YouTube and Google. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. But you're talking to two brothers that have been in the industry working with financial advisors or working as financial advisors that also are licensed or used to be licensed in these really tough exams where you had to understand how the financial markets work and what you can and cannot do as a financial advisor or just a stockbroker or what have you, right? So we understand how the markets work. So choose your coaches wisely is what I tell people. Right? There's people even now, like NVIDIA is popping off, and my students are coming to me and saying, should I buy in NVIDIA? And I'm like, okay, let's talk about asset allocation, like the importance of investing per your goal.
Exactly.
And the challenge is, I mean, hopefully NVIDIA continues to go up, but that same person that was telling you to invest in NVIDIA, they probably also told you to invest in the ARK. And ARK is like, if you don't know what ARK is, it's like an innovative like ETF. And that stock or ETF did poorly. So just make sure you know what you're investing in and choose your coaches wisely. I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah. So you're telling your students to prepare, get your finances in order. This is the best time. Make sure you're investing, take advantage of the long-term growth. For you personally, how are you preparing during this time of turbulent markets?
Yeah, so I'm investing like normal. So, you're going to hear me say it all the time. You should be investing, maxing out your retirement account. So the Roth IRA, now is $540 a month if you want to max it out at $6,500, or $625 a month if you're over 50 and you want to do the $7,500 to catch up. But yeah, like invest like normal. Don't change up anything, especially for long-term growth, and then cash up. One of the things that I'm doing is any extra cash, I'm either putting it into the market on days when the market goes down. I'm just adding a little bit extra more, or I'm holding it to buy into other assets, right? So that's one of the things that I'm doing right now. I have cash that's prepared for if a recession happens, that I can just dump it into the market because, I want to take advantage of that, or, I could invest in the other ways as well. So my main thing is, even if it doesn't happen, right, to cash or liquidity is going to be the thing that feeds your longevity, right? So having access to cash or capital to be able to invest in the things that either produce cash flow or that's going to help you build wealth in the long term, that's my focus. That's how I'm managing my money now. I'm taking care of the things that I have to do in the present tense, but I'm looking forward and looking for opportunities today, whether that's businesses, whether that's real estate or the market. So
Totally agree. Yeah.
Diversification is key too, y'all. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Diversify. And not only just the United States, right? Like you can invest into 100 thousands of companies in the United States, large, mid, small, but also don't forget about our international friends, right?
True.
Like you have Europe, you have Asia, you have, quote unquote, the developing markets, you have the emerging markets. You want to be diversified and get your coin from everywhere you possibly can. I think sometimes people are like, okay, I'm only limited to the United States. No, go ahead and pick up a international ETF as well. So you are diversified across the world. But no, that's great to hear, man. You're taking advantage of the market. And my biggest takeaway from that is control what you can control. There's so many things out there that you can try to control, but a lot of times you can't. The things that you control, and VI already mentioned it, it's like how much you contribute, how often you contribute, your own emotions, right? He said, like, don't change what you've already been doing. Putting money into your 401k, like these are really simple principles, like in theory, but they're really hard to execute if you don't get yourself out of your own way. I think a lot of times when it comes to investing, we are the biggest risk to our portfolio. I always tell my students that. I say, you are the biggest risk to your portfolio, not actually investing, because the market's going to do what it does. Like you can't control it. You can't control LA traffic, you can't control Philly traffic, 76, you can't control Kanye's emotions, like you can't control any of that stuff, right? But you can control how much money you're putting in, your asset allocation, right? The mix of stocks and bonds, being diversified. Control that. Once you get that done, that's 98% of the job. And then a lot of the other, whatever happens, right? Like let the market grow and don't try to beat the market. I think a lot of times people say, okay, well, I can invest more or I can invest a different way and I can make more money than what an index fund can do. But you'll learn over time that the only people that there's no one out there that can actually beat the market. So instead of trying to beat it, grow with it. Right?
Exactly.
I've been burnt, and you can even talk about it. Like I've been burnt so many times on trying to buy that hot stock that someone was talking about, and then you find yourself in the negatives, and then you think to yourself, okay, well, I should have invested in the index fund. Like I tell my students all the time, like you're either one of two investors. You're either the investor that believes that you could beat the market, or you're investor number two, who used to be investor number one, that now invests into index funds. And like you can listen to us, you can listen to someone else, I don't care. But you will learn over time. We're just trying to save you some coin.
Exactly. Like people have to learn, I guess, the hard way for them to understand, right? So as much data as there is, as much information as there is about the markets and how it performs over the long run, people will still think that they can beat it. And it makes no sense to me. I'm like, why would you try to beat the data? Like 100 years of data.
100 years.
How are you going to beat that? And
a lot of times when you hear it from people that, I'll take a step back. I won't go that direction, but like from certain folks, they will say, this time is different, right? Like no economics degree or not professional in economics or like anything financial related, this time is different. And they've been saying that for every year of the market, that this time is different. And you think this time is different compared to COVID, compared to the housing crisis, the tech bubble, even like the Great Recession, or Great Depression. If this time was different, it would have been back then, not now, where in the grand scheme of things, everything that's happening right now is fairly normal. Like high inflation that has happened before, right? Layoffs that has happened before, like the political uncertainty, international uncertainty, has happened before. So this time is definitely not different. So you should continue to do what you have been doing.
Absolutely.
So to kind of wrap this up, so if you're a new investor, let's say you're a new investor, you're getting into the market, how would you go about doing that? Like, let's say I'm fearful of what the market might be bringing us. What's the first step of just getting into the market and starting to invest?
First thing is educating yourself always, right? I'm big on that. So I want you to have an understanding of exactly what you're getting into and understand the ebbs and flows of the market. I think, at least when I teach it, when I show people, the long term, how the S&P 500 looks, like the graph, right? How all that looks and the different dates when it's down and up and stuff like that. Educate yourself on that. Look at that and see over the years what has happened and like the path and the growth of that just from history. Educate yourself on that. From there, once you understand that and you understand how the market moves and there's going to be ups and downs, and when it comes down, it always goes up and it's always on an upward growth projection, right? Once you do that, now it's time to really start putting your foot into the game, like getting into the game and saying, okay, this is an ETF, this is an index fund that tracks this, right? That's similar to this, that I can now start putting money into. And if you're kind of like still on the fence, start small, start with where you are, right? I have people all the time that hit me up like, yo, my account grew by 5-10%. I'm only putting in $100. I should have been investing more, right? Once you see it for yourself, just like me, when I started in Morgan Stanley, seeing the $1 million accounts, it took for me to see that to really start asking the questions. It really took for me to see that to really start moving forward, to start investing more and to start figuring out what can I do to get to that. And that's how you do it. Small, start investing what you can, and then invest the same amount every single month. It's called dollar cost averaging, and stick to that plan because you already know, because you have the education that this is how the market goes. Stick to your plan. Don't deviate. And also have, like, during times like this, don't look at your accounts. Don't look at your portfolios.
That's like the biggest hack ever.
Yeah.
Like, because people ask me, they're like, oh, so like you're trading in and out I'm like, I looked at my account last month and I put money in and I pulled it out. I don't like, what am I gonna do? Right? Like,
exactly.
Look at my account and it's gonna go up, right?
Right.
It's one perfect thing. Someone gave the analogy the other day. They were saying that, like, so your investment portfolio is like soap. The more that you screw around with it and like mess with it, the less you will have over time. Like, it will slowly deteriorate. So like the more you use it, the slower it will deteriorate. So I thought that was really interesting because I think there's a correlation between the amount of times that you look and touch your portfolio and how low it ends up going, your balance. For the people that are truly making a lot of money passively, they probably never look at their portfolio unless they're making some like small change that's going to help them 10, 20 years down the road. Yeah. Otherwise, they go in and make the contribution and they get out. I mean, the best investors are the ones that have automatic contributions straight into like mutual funds.
Yes.
You really don't have to look at your portfolio. Just look at it and say, okay, well, it's going up, and then back out. So no, that's totally right. Control what you can control, guys. VI put it perfectly, so eloquently on like what you should be doing. So take the tips from two guys that are, they were licensed, registered agents. So we had some oversight from FINRA and the SEC. Like, we've done this. This was our paycheck for a lot of times. And luckily, both VI and I, like, we left the industry, but now we're here to teach you guys how to go about managing your money effectively. So VI, for anyone who's like, yo, this guy is speaking bars, like, where can I find this dude? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, you guys can find me everywhere at Money Coach Vince. That's my handle on all platforms: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, everywhere. That's where you can find me. You can also go to my website, www.IamYourMoneyCoach.com.
I love that domain name.
yeah, man. When I first thought about it, I had to go get it quick. I'm like, I feel like somebody else would grab that. So yeah, go to my website. And then everything is there. I have a bunch of resources, free resources that you can get access to learn more about managing money, learn more about investing, learn more about budgeting, all that good stuff. So that's where you can find me.
That's dope, man. No, I appreciate you coming on. And guys, I'm going to make sure that all the links are within the show notes so you can easily click on there and tap in with VI. But VI, I appreciate you coming on. And I'm sure this is one of many episodes that we'll do for the BetterWallet podcast.
Yes, sir. Let's do it. Looking forward to it.
For sure. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to the BetterWallet podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you found any value, we'd appreciate a rating and review.